part of the organization, and it's been 30 years since you won a championship. It's special, man. And these guys have been fucking dying for it and waiting for it, man. It's for you, baby. This first one's for you. The rest of you people. Well, man, enjoy, baby.
He's the best. Dan Campbell, 30 years. Just for context, Jared Goff wasn't even alive 30 years ago. And if I'm not mistaken, just 6 guys on their active roster were alive 30 years ago. And with that, we welcome in Brian Baldinger, who's already won the life lotto, as I like to say. Baldy, a ton of juicy matchups all over the field. Let's start with this one. Cowboys, a team that obviously needs a win. They're at home, which is definitely good news for them. But this is a Lions team bringing the heat, maybe the best offensive line in the NFL. When you watch the tape, what are some of those unique wrinkles on their offense that you're catching?
It's interesting, Mike, because every time I turn on the Lions tape week in, week out, I see something that I've never really seen before. And it's a credit to Ben Johnson, the offense coordinator. These plays aren't winning games, but it gives you something to think about. Like against Chicago, they're an I formation over here. They're going to take the tight end, put him out. But there's a big hole over there between the left guard and left tackle, and it's filled then by Penei Sewell. And Chicago just completely adjusts their defense. And they overplay the overshift. And then they come back and run the other way with Jahmyr Gibbs, and he pops a big run because Chicago's out of the gaps. They overplayed the what they did with Penei Sewell, and it caught him. Now watch this one right here. Like here comes Sam Laporta to a fullback position. And at the snap, he doesn't move. And they were hoping that this defensive end, Baron Browning, did exactly that. He wouldn't move either and would be frozen by it and allow Jared Goff to get the ball down the field. Incomplete pass, but still kind of unique. They do a lot with their tight ends here. You're going to see from the I formation and their ability with the offensive line to get to the second level, all right? To get both linebackers blocked and then get the tight end on Jaquan McMillan right here. He goes inside, running back goes outside. Everybody's involved in the run game, receivers as well. Great blockers. And then when you take the wide receiver out, it removes the Viking player out here. And then you see Jahmyr Gibbs make this cutback. And you go, wow, that was a big hole on the cutback right here and getting around the edge. And you just go, well, maybe they were out of position. And you see the motion right here by the tight end. It takes Harrison Smith, 22, out of the hole right here. And here comes Jahmyr Gibbs again. So they do a lot with their motions and their shifts. This is a talented back. It's a good 1-2 punch with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs that they're going to have to contend with. I think it's the best offensive line the Dallas Cowboys have seen, especially in the run game, all year. And it's going to be really the #1 target of that defense right now to try to slow it down and get off these blocks.
Yeah, an astute observation on that offensive line and what Dallas has faced so far this season. Will it be enough for us to pick the Detroit Lions? We got those game picks, especially this one coming up in just a bit. But for more on the Cowboys and this matchup, no one more dialed in than Jane Slater.
The Detroit Lions and Jared Goff are playing some of their best football, winning 3 of their last 4. Jared Goff has 8 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and they're averaging about 35 points a game. Amon St. Brown is clearly a threat in the passing game, but so is the run game when you consider they have Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. They are the only duo in the league with 1,000 yards of scrimmage. The Cowboys, they're not faring too well against the run as of late. Going back to Week 15, they're allowing 178 yards on the ground. And when you look at the Lions, well, they're averaging 3rd most yards on the ground with close to 142 a game. What would be huge for the Cowboys is getting back Jonathan Hankins, a Detroit native, to help bolster that interior. And right now, it looks like he's trending in the right direction.
I thought Lamar had an MVP performance tonight. You know, it takes a team to create a performance like that. But it takes a player to play at that level. To play at an MVP level, it takes a player to play that way. And Lamar was all over the field doing everything.
We got the dub. You know, I really don't care about the performance. I just wanted to win, and that's what happened tonight. You know, on Christmas, that was my gift. You know, they asked me at an interview a couple weeks ago, like, what would I want for Christmas? And my wish got granted.
To be fair, that wish of wins continues to be granted to this Ravens team. They're really good. Not only is Lamar a legit MVP candidate, but the Ravens lead the NFL in scoring, defense, sacks, and takeaways. They'd be the first team since 1970 to lead the NFL in each of those metrics. So, Baldy, abundantly clear. Baltimore, well, they aced that test against the San Francisco 49ers. A tough exam here against the Miami Dolphins. So how do they make sure they get a passing grade?
Well, the Baltimore Ravens play a matchup zone defense. Nobody else in the league really plays that style of defense. They're very good at it. You've got to run the ball against it, especially if their safeties are playing deep like they often are. And you've got to be able to run the ball against this defense if you're going to have success. And I do think, Mike, it is really important that Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins got to see that game on Christmas night, to study it, to see what the 49ers did well and what they didn't do well, and to make sure that they don't fall into some of those mistakes.
Baldy, I think that's a really great point and astute observation, because there's obviously some similarities to what the Dolphins want to accomplish and what we've seen the San Francisco 49ers do. Keep in mind, you showed Kyle Hamilton in that interception, still questionable for this game because of the knee. That could be a huge factor from a Ravens perspective. But for more on this game, our Cam Wolf has got us covered.
Ahead of a major AFC showdown with the Dolphins and Ravens this weekend, the Dolphins had several key players on the injury report. Wide receiver Jalen Waddle will be out for Sunday's game at Baltimore with a high ankle sprain. I saw him in a walking boot earlier this week, and Mike McDaniel said it's not overly severe, but he hasn't practiced all week. And so the Dolphins will be without one of their top receivers. Good news is they will have Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, all three of their other top weapons dealing with lingering issues. They should be good to go, as is Tua, who banged his left throwing thumb against the Cowboys, but he played the rest of the game with it. Going to keep an eye on that matchup between the Ravens secondary that's also banged up. Kyle Hamilton, Brandon Stevens, both of those guys didn't practice today. You got a top Ravens defense, #1 in a lot of major categories, a top Dolphins offense, #1 in a lot of major categories.
It's the Ravens and the Dolphins controlling their own destiny. They win out, they will get home field advantage in the postseason. As for the playoff probability, all right, check this out. The team who wins and has the best chance to make the postseason pending a victory, most likely Jags, Bills, and Colts. But as Tom Pelissero told us a little bit earlier in the show, for the Jags, Trevor Lawrence, don't necessarily expect him out there. He is out for this matchup. Baldy, I kind of feel like we're probably both in agreement here. AFC South, maybe the most juice around some of these games heading into the weekend?
Well, you have three teams that are all 8-7. Somebody's got to win the division, right, Mike? So if you look at the Jags, without Trevor Lawrence this week, playing Carolina with C.J. Beathard at quarterback, Bryce Young coming off his best game he's ever played. Then Houston gets C.J. Stroud back. All right, they played 2 games without him in concussion protocol. They played Tennessee, who they beat 2 weeks ago, in overtime, and then they play at Indy. And then Indy, who had a disappointing loss in Atlanta, where they didn't play well at all, last week gets 2 home games. James Steichen's team at 8-7 plays the Raiders this weekend, who are hot and playing good defense, and then they finish with Houston. So that final game, who knows, depending if the Jaguars continue these losing ways, maybe that game decides the AFC South Week 18, Indy and Houston in Indianapolis. So there's so much to play for here. A lot of division games, a lot of head-to-head matchups in the last 2 weeks of the season. But one of these teams is going to come away victorious in the AFC South.
Baldy, we were joking. It's abundantly clear our research team going to be pretty busy going through all of the tiebreakers in this division to try to figure out who's going to be postseason bound. Here's the good news from an NFC perspective. The Niners still the lead dog right now. Eagles knocking on the door. Eagles, by the way, they still have a chance to get that 1 seed. They need to win out. They need the Lions to lose 1 game and the Niners also to lose 1 game. But it feels like we keep having the same conversation, Baldy, about some of the struggles that Philly has got. How vulnerable is this team's defense right now?
I think they're vulnerable, Mike. I mean, when you look at their past defense throughout the season, it's not very good. In fact, from Sean Desai to, Matt Patricia is going to fix anything. We've seen a couple games with Patricia now. Maybe getting Darius Slay back healthy will help. But it has been a problem because if you break down on the back end of your defense, whether it's in coverage or poor tackling, you give up touchdowns, you give up big scores. And that's something that I don't know if it's going to get fixed as they go and get ready for the postseason.
Baldy, I don't know if it's going to get fixed either, because if I'm not mistaken, you might have been the only guy in week 2 here on NFL Network talking about the secondary issues not being the same of what we've seen from previous Eagles squads. So this is going to be